there was a report in Politico, of course, about the Munich Security Conference that has just ended. And, one of the senators, the U.S. senators who was there, Sheldon Whitehouse, a Democrat from Rhode Island, he had this to say, which I found interesting because the rest of the report is how important it is for the $60 billion that's a part of that major package that hasn't been able to gain much traction inside of Washington for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel. But it says, according to Sheldon Whitehouse, the range of battlefield possibilities remains enormous with or without more weapons flowing to Ukraine. And this is what I found interesting. I'd like your reactions to this, whoever wants to go first. Somewhere between Afghanistan, driving the Russians out with essentially partisan guerrilla warfare in great armies conflict like we have right now is where it ends up. So whoever wants to be, I like your reaction to that, because you all just laid out the roadmap of where this is all going. And that is, it's what it seems to be the most intelligent assessment we can get out of those in Washington who are seeking to prolong this conflict. So whoever wants to begin.
Read my lips. There is not a single person in the Capitol Hill who understands the modern warfare. None. Zero. Including a bunch of those. There are people who do understand what is going on. They are probably within the middle level Pentagon planners. Those, lieutenant colonels, and maybe brigadier generals, the people who have the hands-on experience, maybe some people in CIA and DIA. Now, that's about it. There is not a single American politico who has a clue what modern war is. And of course, they need to read actually Lester Grau's excellent work on Afghanistan and Russians being there. So anytime any US senator or congressman begins to open their yapper about warfare, I mean, it's preposterous. These people, and again, I repeating it nonstop, but then again, that's not me. You can, what? For all I care, oh yeah, Martyanov is Russian. He could be KGB agent or what have you. But here is General Robert Latif, PhD in physics, 20 years in DARPA. He writes it openly in the Future of War book, 2016. You can find it. This is the best quote, and I quote it. So everything what American public and politicals know about war is from the entertainment industry. Period. That's it.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. Afghanistan, you have Russians, white Slavic people, some Ukrainians, a couple Central Asian guys, but going into a Pashtun stronghold in terrain. So you're not one of them. You can't go to the villages. The villages are with them. And so, that Ukraine, it's not like the Russians have never been there. Understand this, from 1944 until 1953, 54, the Russians fought a major counterinsurgency against the Banderists, the organization of Ukrainian nationalists in Ukraine, in Poland, in Belarus, and slaughtered them, wiped them off the face of the earth. The CIA, I think, started in 1949, started dropping teams in to try and arm them, equip them, etc. But the CIA operations specialist said it's hopeless because no resistance can succeed unless it's basically disrupting and buying time before a major military force is coming to link up with it. So the idea that you're going to get a Ukrainian partisan movement that's going to defeat the Russians is stupid. What you're going to get is isolated acts of terroristic criminal activity that the FSB is going to investigate like a crime and wind it up. You have to communicate. In this environment, the FSB will saturate with intercept capability. You're not going to communicate. They have more monitoring capability than you know what. So if you're trying to move and do that stuff, the FSB will follow you, arrest you. You may blow up a car here. You may blow up a bridge here. You may do something. But the bottom line of anybody who's thinking that the Ukrainians are going to put on this great partisan warfare, you're smoking dope. isn't going to can happen. One of the reasons why it won't happen, especially, is that Mao Zedong, the gorilla is like the fish swimming in the ocean. The ocean is the people and the fish. The majority of the people that are going to be in the territory that the Russians are occupying are going to want the Russians to be there. They're going to be working with the Russians against the partisans. The Russians do interesting things like bring in gas lines, bring in water lines, bring in sewage, pave roads, build schools, pay pensions, make sure that there's food, medical care, etc., the infrastructure. Ukraine has a reputation, especially in the Russian zones, of not investing in infrastructure. Why do you think Crimea was crumbling? Because since 1991, the Ukrainians refused to invest any money into Crimea. They said, "Oh, that's where the Russians are." What do you think they did in eastern Ukraine? They didn't invest. They left the Russians to hang. They didn't put any money in for modernization and all that. This population does not like Kiev. And when the Russians show up and start bringing the infrastructure in and rebuilding, the population is going to be with Russia. So now if you're suddenly saying, I'm going to do this anti-Russian partisan activity, it's not going to happen. So let's stop talking about Sheldon Whitehouse, as Andre said, doesn't understand anything about what he's talking about. Neither does anybody. And I can guarantee you this. There were some CIA and special operations guys who before this war were training Ukrainian special operators to do unconventional warfare and things of that nature. And look, the Ukrainians have had some spectacular successes. If the story is true, the foot infiltration to Engels Air Base, where they launched an attack, legendary stuff. They all got killed coming back, but it doesn't matter. They did that. There's some really good guys in Ukrainian special forces, but these aren't partisans. These are direct action, kind of guys. Anybody who does this work, if you go talk to a special forces team right now, and who's actually gone through Robin Sage and does all this stuff, they'll sit there and tell you we don't want to touch this with a 9-foot pole because it's a recipe for failure. Where's the action to link up? Where's the action to bring control? We have to give these people hope. They have to have a hope that something good is going to happen. And that implies that NATO, either the Ukrainians are going to reconstitute an army and be able to launch an attack. That's not going to happen. Or NATO's coming in. That's not going to happen. So when Sheldon Whitehouse speaks of, large army warfare, I think that was the term he used. It is the Russians are not going to invade the Baltics. The Russians are not going to invade Poland. It just isn't going to happen unless Poland attacks Russia or the Baltics attack Russia. And then it's all she wrote. With an army now that the Russians, do you think that the United States right now has, let me put it this way. Back in 2005, 2006, I was invited to the School of Advanced Military Studies in Fort Leavenworth to meet with. They have it's a majors level course, command and staff, but then they have a lieutenant colonel's special course, which is more elite. And I had a friend who was there, so I came in to talk with them. But then I've talked to the majors. But what I was watching was they were bringing people in to come up with counterinsurgency warfare doctrine to bring everybody together, to talk about the lessons learned from Iraq and Afghanistan, to bring the brain trust together and come up with, doctrine. Petraeus was in charge and he produced a piece of crap, but that's a different story. At least the system was trying to do something right. The Russians right now, this is like, Opti going off to the General Staff Academy is around their third or fourth iteration of pulling combat leaders out of the front lines, putting them for a 3 or 4 month course in the General Staff Academy to suck the knowledge out of their head and say, how do we get better? What do we have to do? And then they take this, they turn it into a curriculum, and they've actually had units that had gone through training, gone through the assault courses. The new curriculum came out and people went, we were teaching them the wrong thing. If they go in, some of these guys are going to die because we haven't updated it. They pulled them off the front They were supposed to become the operational reserve ready to go in. They pulled them off and retrained them. Took, a month and a half, 2 months to retrain these guys to the new doctrine because the Russians are continuously updating this stuff. The Russians right now, as Andrei said, they're not just fighting the Ukrainians. They are geared towards fighting NATO, and NATO won't have a clue what hit them, because I can guarantee you that the United States hasn't pulled. First of all, we're not directly involved in this, but if I were doing this, I would take Americans, special forces guys usually, or some skilled, tactically oriented majors, some captains, some majors, some lieutenant colonels, and I would sheep dip them. I would say, you're Ukrainian for a month. You're attached to this unit. Your job isn't to fight. Your job is to observe and learn. I want you to watch how the Ukrainians are doing this. I want you to see how the Russians are doing this. And if you live, we're going to pull you out and you're going to the School of Advanced Military Studies, where we're going to start updating doctrines so that we're ready to fight the Russians, because they're getting ready to fight us. But we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Right now, we're teaching the same old crap that we taught before. We're talking big arrows, Desert Storm. We're talking Operation Iraqi Freedom, driving up to Baghdad. We're talking all this stuff. And if we try to do that against the Russians, we're going to die, literally, straight up. Because as Andrei said, the Russians, the reason why they built this new artillery system is that they learned something, that you can't allow yourself to be outranged. You can't allow yourself to be outranged. And NATO was outranging the Russians. B, even if you have ranged weapons, because the Russians do have some long-range artillery, it has to be precision strike capability. And if it's not, then it doesn't do you any good. You're blowing up dirt. And C, if you can outrange them with precision strike and mass, you win. And then the most important thing, and this is something that nobody gets, a couple of the guys I talked to, including Opti, I'm allowed to talk about it now because he's spoken, so I don't feel guilty. I always felt guilty, like betraying a trust. But the Russians now, look, and he laid it out for me. He said, Scott, I know you. I know your background. He said, I can tell you how you would do the battle. You'd get up there, you'd have your supporting arms in place, you'd lay down your supporting arms, you'd advance, you bring in your spotters, you'd have some drones out there. As you locate the enemy, you're going to suppress them, maneuver in, come in, bring it up, boom, boom, boom. And I said, yeah, that's pretty much how it works. And he said, okay, let me tell you how we do it now. He said, I start out by gridding out the battlefield. And the grids are drone support grids. And he says, what I do is I overlay my drones, the reconnaissance drones, the oversight drones, the communications drones. They even have logistics drones now. As you put infiltrators in, you can fly in drones that drop off supplies, so you don't have to worry about, bringing in a tracked vehicle and all this kind of stuff. But the drones are in there, are maneuvers based upon drones. The drones define the maneuver. And then I start overlaying my drone plan with infantry, artillery, armor. These are all supporting weapons to the drone fight. The drones are leading the way. This is what he's writing right now. New drone doctrine, because drone warfare, it's over. I mean, I had guys talking to me about this even beforehand. They were talking about, because I always thought, drone operator would be some guy, some geek in the rear, flying a drone around. And he was like, oh, hell no. He said, we go in with an assault unit and we have a drone unit right with them, providing tactical combat support. And I'm not talking about reconnaissance. I'm saying fire support. These FPV drones, we got a bunker. Could you imagine Iwo Jima? The Marines come in off the beach. They come in and bam, they get hit by a Japanese bunker. Instead of having to lay down suppressing fire, maneuver in, get guys killed and all that stuff, they call back and a guy comes up, flies his drone, boom, drone, take it out, go. They got that built right in. But see, that's still a supporting arm. What they're doing now is the drones are leading the way. The drones are defining, shaping the battlefield. Everything else is supporting this. And we're back in the United States still playing Desert Storm.
I'll give you the number. I'll give you the number. There, I believe the last half a year, it's just half a year. You can check it out. 23,000 drones have been produced, and we're not talking about FPVs. We're talking about the serious, drones. So they say they will increase it 10 times this year. And they showed it, Zala Corporation. So that is why when you drive in Donetsk, you better have your sunroof open and all windows down. You know why? You want to hear when this thing comes in, then you maybe have a chance, or if you have a weapon, you probably can, shoot back, hoping that you will hit it. But the point is, as Scott correctly stated, and it's Gerasimov and General Staff, what are they doing right now? They have no reason to rush, actually. You know why? Because as it's been stated very clearly, and I repeat basically what everybody knows in Russia, Russian armed forces have been untied from the calendar. That's what Putin said. I don't care about calendar. You do your thing, whatever it takes. And so Gerasimov and General Staff, they are shaping the military, as Scott correctly stated, for the next 25 to 30 years. And it comes through that's where the difference is. As Mark Milley, before he left, he said, oh yeah, if we had this, joint force thingy, it's like everybody, neocons went after him. I don't like Milley. I mean, he wasn't the principal man, but the point is, neocons went berserk. He wants to copy Russian General Staff, and it's not going to work. Well, you know how it works in the United States. Each force, each service basically bring in their operational plan, and they try to coordinate through the Joint Chief of Staff. In Russia, General Staff literally designs everything from the military industry to what weapon system you want, to what weapon system you need to design for the future, and how the doctrine will be written for the future. It is all coordinated. There is no such thing as Navy comes in and says, oh yeah, we need to have this, and period. They have to do it in connection to the overall defensive doctrine of the state. And that's why General Staff exists. It coordinates literally everything. And when you look at this, yeah, it is the shaping of the force. This force, could it go, for example, into Poland? Yes, it could. But will it? No. Why? But it is designed such a way as to, correctly Scott stated, if NATO decides to commit suicide, so there you go. Russia has this force. Plus, there are some other geopolitical contingencies which have to be considered. And I'm not going to go into this. But how to put it? Things change. Even Mr. Lavrov a few days ago stated maybe sometime in the future when relations will be restored, we'll see what's going to happen. And I think so. This is the very important thing which happened. Many people do not necessarily reflect on it, as absolutely necessary or as it is worth its consideration. Because what happened with this hysteria with the nuclear weapons in space and all this garbage? Everybody knows it's all propaganda primarily. Everybody knows Russia's anti-satellite capability, what they are pretty much, more or less. They know what they are, and they know Russians do not want to put nuclear weapons into space. There are nuclear, obviously, power sources which are flying there. But the point is, most likely what we see is that, we need to communicate with Russians immediately. We need the contact. We need that. It's all the cover up for basically what already everybody understands. Even, I'm not sure about Joe, but I'm pretty sure Sullivan finally figured it out, that we better start talking now because it could be late down the road completely. And under the guise of this hysteria and they kind of untied themselves a little bit, their hands, that they can go out now and reach to Russians and said, how about those space weapons? And while we're talking about space weapons, how about we talk about this thing here? And then they begin to discuss what is the white elephant, in the room, or 800-pound gorilla, whatever. And they need to talk. because the war between Russia and the United States is a horror. Okay, nobody wants that, So, and as a result, we have this development, and then of course after Avdiivka, well, they knew that Avdiivka gonna fall really fast. They knew it. They are not complete idiots there. There are still smart people in CIA and Pentagon. They could figure it out. So they were preparing this. And once Avdiivka fell, everybody understood the significance, especially it has been the most fortified area, probably in Europe, and now what do you have? Well, obviously it's not Maginot Line, and they need to talk. How are you going to talk when you basically, insulted the country, assaulted it, effectively conducting the unannounced war? So, well, yeah, there's the guys. Disguising those concerns about the space weapons, let's kind of talk about those space weapons. And obviously, under this guise, they can now start talking. I think so. There are some actually contacts right now. We'll see where it goes, But Russia obviously not gonna give up any kind of the strategic perspective in Ukraine. It's pretty much clear what Russia is gonna be doing there.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyHaiFong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.